Morning. On the way of the show, we'll go in a little bit more on the plastic bag ban with Nick Lee from the Guam EPA. Also, Mount Carmel. I think the whole Mount Carmel is coming on after 9 to talk about their resumption of face-to-face learning. In the KUM News Zoom room now, though, we have Senator Clynt Ridgell standing by. We'll talk with him about a bunch of bills. If you look at the Guam legislature's website, I mean, for the most part, it's Senator Ridgell, Senator Jim Moylan. I mean, introduced so many different bills, and then I think a few of the Republicans who have measures like queued up there at the legislature's website. But we wanted to also bring on Senator Sabina Perez as the Department of Labor Oversight to just kind of chime in on the developments and then the responses that we got from Congressman Michael Nicholas, who had a press conference yesterday, and of course Labor Director Dave De La Sola, who came on this morning to respond to the comments that were made by the congressman during his press conference. So we'll go with Senator Sabina first. Senator, good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Chris and Sabina. Good morning, Senator Ridgell.
Good morning, everyone.
Yes. So in regards to, I entrust, first I want to commend Director Dave De La Sola for his hard work and follow through. And I do trust that, because he had direct guidance from the Department of Labor, that he would have the most updated information. But having said that, I know that both of them have the same, same initiative is to try to address the loophole in, the fact that potentially many of the underemployed workers would no longer qualify for the $300 a week PUA. So that's I guess just it's an issue that needs to be addressed. And being that inauguration day is on January 20th, I know the administration, Congressman Nicholas is, I'm sure, working behind the scenes to try to rectify the situation. But I think in the meantime, knowing that, I do want to encourage, basically encourage the employees to talk to their employers as was recommended by the director, and to figure out, the working situation, whether, employees are going to be fully employed, that decision has to be made by the employer with their staff, to have that and to as well, lay off people. I mean, that's the hard decision that would have to be made. But for those that are going to be laid off, would be able to avail themselves of the PUA. But I think it's really unfortunate that, really it sends the wrong message. People that were trying to, make ends meet by taking on jobs in these jobs now, face the situation where they may not have the capability to do so. My concern is, access to food, being able to pay the rent, the bills. I mean, that's a big one. And, I would recommend, once speaking with your employer, I think they to recommend to apply for public assistance. So the SNAP program, if they haven't done so already. So availing themselves of federal assistance, other federal assistance programs is critical at this time. And I think it's also good that, GWA, GPA have the no disconnection policy. I think that's critical too. So try to keep our households, our people afloat. I think at this time, we need to have a short-term gap measure to do that. But I think what I would like to do too in the near future is, there's another arm of the Department of Labor, and that's the workforce development. So we know, we all, knew that, we cannot depend on federal monies indefinitely. And I mean, it's great that we have that opportunity, but I think in order to look for the long-term fix, we need to look at workforce development. And that's the other arm of Department of Labor. And that's something I would like to schedule a roundtable on workforce development for Guam, because, to be put in this situation, we don't want to be put in this situation again. And, I believe that our community is resilient and we need to focus our efforts on, being, have these other avenues. I know there are other programs that are in the works. So for instance, there's, agriculture, aquaculture, that is coming out, I think, relatively soon with GITA. So there's other types of assistance that people can avail themselves with, and I highly recommend that they reach out to Department of Public Welfare, at least to get that assistance.
What about long-term, looking at an unemployment insurance program, a local one?
Yes, and Director David Della Sola had mentioned something about that yesterday, that, definitely, I think Guam needs to establish that. Of course, the issue is how is it going to be funded, right? And normally it's funded by the employers, and they're already facing issues right now with the loss of revenue from our major drivers, tourism. So it may be difficult at this time, but yeah, that's definitely, you're right. It should be a multi-pronged approach.
Right. Senator Ridgell,
what develop?
I just want to bring you in here. What are your thoughts on UI? I mean, you guys have the majority in the legislature. Is this something that you think is realistic, feasible, sustainable at this time?
I think that definitely needs to be worked on. I know there was a bill that was introduced yesterday relating to that there would be a reduction in BPT, and that some of the money coming from the BPT would be used towards unemployment insurance. But yeah, so that's something that is something that be worked on, considering the state of the economy. Basically we're limited with the revenues that are coming in. So yeah, that's something we would have to think about, especially with the budget cycle coming up. We have to cut. Obviously, we have to cut, if we're not going to be able to expand our economy at this time. So that's something that would have to be, thought about. Is what are we going to prioritize? Right. But always multi-pronged approach is, how do we? The big thing that I would like to focus on too, as well, is developing industries, how diversify our economy. That's something that we know has been a long-term goal, but I think now is the time that we really need to put our efforts into that. There's agriculture, I think, is one of the big initiatives by the administration, and I believe there's some progress in that with GITA. So I believe we'll be hearing about that fairly soon. And so looking at all those options, I think, are very important.
Senator Ridgell?
Yeah, what was the question was whether or not it's realistic to do unemployment insurance. Is that what the question was?
Sure.
It's challenging, but yeah, like Senator Sabina said, Senator Perez said, someone has to pay for it. And that's the problem. No one wants to pay for it. Realistically, there's got to be a way to do it. And there is a bill that's been introduced that would roll back the BPT and then put some money towards the unemployment insurance program. So there's a possibility there. I don't know if that bill has enough support. I believe it is a bipartisan bill. I think it's introduced by Senator Mary Torres, and I believe Vice Speaker Tina Muñoz-Barnes is a co-sponsor, and I think one other I believe Senator Pito Terlai is a sponsor. So there's some bipartisan support. Whether or not it gets passed remains to be seen. We still have to see. I'm not sure where everyone else stands in the bill. I've read it, but I haven't really sort of thoroughly analyzed it to, see what all the pros and cons are. Right. So I'm not 100% sure where I stand on that measure myself. Mm-hmm. Bottom line is it is going to be difficult to do right now, but I think we can do it. I think the biggest thing for us right now is really to focus on getting, so an unemployment insurance thing should have been done a long time ago. It should have been done a long time ago. Then we wouldn't even be having this discussion right now. Right. Now it's kind of like, this is when we should have already had an unemployment insurance program stood up ever since. Now we're trying to stand one up when the economy is not at 100%. So first, we need to figure out how to get the economy back up and running, get the economy up to 100%. And a big part of that, of course, is containing COVID. Hopefully, with the vaccine coming in, this can become a reality sooner than later. And also, creating the new industries, like agriculture. That's something I've been talking about since I ran for office the first time. That's been a major initiative of mine, is developing an agricultural industry in Guam. I actually have a bunch of bills I'll be introducing in the first quarter of this year, to deal with agriculture. And other things too, I think, that can create new industry, of course, is cannabis. Looking forward to getting that up and running as soon as possible, hopefully including Tumon. So,
easy now.
Even if it's just one dispensary down in Tumon, I mean, I don't think it's gonna hurt. I don't think it's gonna chase away any tourists.
Oh, you and your devil weed.
Especially considering we already legalized it in 2019, and no tourists were scared away. In fact, we had even more tourists. We broke records. So it's not like tourists heard we legalized it and said, we're not coming. In fact, more came. So anyway, those are things we can work on. I had to throw that in there. So anyway,
it is what it is.
Jerry Perez is on the line. Oh.
Yeah, Jerry Perez.
Jerry, all right, let's go. Let's go, Jerry. I'm ready.
Oh
boy.
Let's go. Let's go.
Dun, 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 dun. Just real quickly, Bill 22 is what the senators are referring to. That was introduced by Senator Torres, Senator Nelson, Senator Munya Barnes, the Vice Speaker, and Senator Amanda Shelton. And you could read that on GuamLegislature.com.
Let's talk. Senator Sabina, I wanted to bend your ear a little bit. Obviously, a big conversation here in 2021, rebuilding the economy. Ideas, measures that may be coming out from your office?
So yes, one thing that I thought about is, one of the exceptions for the PUA, right, was self-employed workers. But, unfortunately, I was thinking of bona fide farmers, right? Perhaps I think there is definitely a drive to do that. There was Farm to Table that recently got a grant that would assist with the development of that. So just kind of like Senator Ridgell was saying, developing our agriculture economy. And it's always been my vision to have, more backyard type of farming, micro farming. And that's something what the ANA grant for the Farm to Table would do, is to assist with the development of more of these backyard farmers, people that would, can make a business out of it. We import most of our food off island, and I think it'd be great, way to solve a problem, to solve two problems at one time, right? Unemployment and food security. I think that is something that I would like to address. And also, we're always importing labor as far as, construction labor. I mean, there's always jobs for that. And I think it's, critical that we localize the labor force. I mean, this is the time to do that. Of course, you would have to be physically capable to do that. But, there are opportunities. And I do, this is what we're going to need to get out of this is, people becoming, localizing the workforce, even entrepreneurs. I've been a big proponent of social entrepreneurship, which is you develop a business plan around solving one of the issues that we have. And so food security is an issue, it could be other things. So I think, again, I would like to, schedule a roundtable with various stakeholders on how to do this. And I definitely would like to reach out to the director, David Della Sola. I know he's so busy. And then also, Mary Cotta and all the stakeholders to help create, a process forward. In the meantime, while we wait for the tourist industry to bounce back, that's not going to take place anytime soon. So, we need to develop these alternative ways of livelihoods.
Right. Senator,
the other thing that I have, yes, go ahead.
If you wanted to finish your thought, that was fine. I was just going to ask Senator Ridgell something.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. The other thing is diversifying education. So I'm also have been, advocating for magnet schools within the Department of Education. And what that would be is it would develop pathways for different types of careers. And I really, would like to continue to work with all the educational stakeholders as I have in the past term. And this is something that I would like to see occur, at least start. I mean, we already have the beginnings of it with the GCC satellite programs in the different high schools, but I would like to extend it back to the elementary school so that, similar to what Germany has, they diversify their education system into different occupations. And so that's another thing initiative that I'd like to continue working on.
All right. Senator Ridgell, you're committee chair on economic development. There's a lot of bills, as you know, that have been introduced related to the economy and recovery. Have you had a chance to review any of those bills? We're talking about like the BPT, bills dealing with property taxes, creation of a transshipment task force. What are your thoughts so far on some of those bills?
Which ones? So
we can start with let's get Guam moving forward bill by Moylan, Ada, Duenas, and Frank Bloss Jr.
Okay, refresh my memory. What does that bill do? I'm sorry.
Well, they are all kind of
Besides getting
together.
Guam moving forward, what is
right.
that?
Yeah.
The BPT.
Okay.
Reducing the business privilege.
Rolling back the BPT.
That's one of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same sort of problem we had in the last term. I know Senator Moylan introduced the bill to roll back the BPT in the last term. The issue is if you roll back the BPT, then you really have to make a lot of cuts in the government of Guam. So then we're going to have to fire people in the government of Guam. So then we're going to have less services, and then we're going to have more unemployed people. And then another question too is if we roll back the BPT, does that mean that the businesses will lower their prices? Well, history tells us no, because when I pulled the consumer price index for the last time that the BPT was rolled back and compared it, when they rolled back the BPT the last time, the prices did not roll back at all. They continued to increase. So, those are the concerns I have with that measure is, say we roll back the BPT, is that really going to help anyone right now? Let's face it. The reason why the economy is hurting right now is not because of the BPT. It's because we have no tourists. And the reason we have no tourists is because of this pandemic, is because of the coronavirus. So we got to fix that first and get the tourists back here. Now, a lot of people just say, open up tourism, open up tourism. Well, wake up call. I don't think the tourists are going to come knowing that we have, coronavirus. I mean, they're struggling with it in some of their own countries. And the bottom line is they're not going to want to come here if they don't feel safe, if they don't feel like coronavirus is contained or nearly eliminated on Guam. They're not going to travel. And we know that. They did that before with SARS. We didn't even have SARS on Guam, and we lost tourists just because tourists stopped traveling, period, in the Asian countries specifically, because they were afraid of the SARS outbreak and they were afraid of going into airports and other things like that. They didn't feel safe about traveling at the time. So the bottom line is we got to figure out we got to continue what we're doing with the vaccinations, and then hopefully we can open up tourism this year. Really open up tourism this year. Yeah, we might find ways to get a few in here and there but not really at any meaningful level until we can really contain COVID. Then the tourists can come back, and then that's when the economy will really get going again. Other than that, it's just coming up with other ways to try to improve the economy, which I think are things we should look at. I've read some articles and some people have made a lot of talk about finding foreign investments from Hong Kong. That's something I'm interested in. I think that's a good idea because of the instability in Hong Kong right now. There are some people looking to get out of Hong Kong because they're worried that the communist mainland China will take over Hong Kong. So, let's find ways to entice foreign investments to come to Guam. And so one thing I've been doing a lot of is looking a lot at how did Singapore become rich, all right? So Singapore is roughly the same size as Guam. It's just a little bit bigger than Guam. They've got a lot more people, but they weren't always rich. I think in the 60s and 70s, they had a huge homeless population. They had huge shanty towns and a lot of people living in shacks and just living in squalor. The first thing they did is they addressed their housing crisis. They came up with a solid public housing program and got everyone off the streets and into public housing. The second thing they did was they created a business-friendly environment and found a way to entice foreign investments. They brought in a lot of foreign investments. They didn't have anything in particular. They don't have any raw materials. They don't have any real natural resources. Like, you can't mine anything in there. They don't have the raw materials for manufacturing. They just got creative and found a way to bring in foreign investments. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be the next Singapore, but why not? Or let's just try to entice some foreign investments. There was an article in the paper about captive insurance program. And I'll be honest, I've been a skeptic of captive insurance, but this article pointed out that the FSM has got more captive insurance investments than Guam has. I mean, we can't even do as good as the FSM has done. You know, we like to think of ourselves as, you know, we're such a stronger economy than the FSM. But here's the FSM, a small nation that managed to get more captive insurance investments than we have. So those are things we really need to look at and figure out, how do we do it? And that's something that I really want to work on in this term.
I wanted to bend you to his ear about just a couple of hot button issues. Minimum wage. Obviously, Senator Moylan was on yesterday with the Chamber and GHRA, and he's introduced a bill delaying that minimum wage increase set to go into effect in March for a year. Where do you guys stand on a minimum wage increase delay?
No.
Senator Sabina?
I vote no.
I'm open to hearing both sides on this issue.
Oh, come on, Senator Sabina, just vote no.
Okay.
No, I would like to hear.
Point of personal privilege. What about on?
Point of order, Madam Chair.
What about the bill regarding deputy directors prohibiting funding by October 2021? Senator Ridgell?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this has always been. Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Senator Perez? You have the floor.
So I think always been an issue where, we see, political hires. I think what this bill does, it addresses the issue of political hires. Deputy directors, is that correct?
Yes.
And, that's something that, I'm also open to looking, because, unless they're qualified, they have qualifications, they're actually, they're providing the service the support that's needed for that agency. Like, let's say the Department of Public Health, there obviously is a need for these deputy directors. It's a critical agency. But maybe perhaps these other agencies that, can go without a deputy director. I think that's important to at this time. We really need to conserve our resources. The revenues aren't looking good from what I can tell. Yeah. So where can we cut? And we always try to cut at the low hanging fruit. Obviously we need to shift our workforce. We need people. The rank and file workers are really critical for a lot of these agencies. One of the agencies I oversee, Department of Revenue and Taxation. They're in need of workers, and maybe perhaps one of those positions can fund two positions of the rank and file.
Yeah.
So really kind of
Rev and Tax getting Frank Leon Guerrero $91,000. But you know what I think is interesting? You said that on both sides of this argument, it seems like everyone has run to the opposite end of the spectrum. We have the administration saying, no, we need every single deputy director, and then we have the Republicans saying, get rid of all the deputy directors. And I think there's got to be a happy medium, because you're right. I mean, I talk to deputy directors who have no business being employed in the government of Guam, but then I also talk to some deputy directors who do more than the directors do. Jess Garcia. I gotta cut in here, guys. We're KUAM FM and Agatni Guam. Oh no, wait. No, we are. I think we're back on. Yeah, I just got the memo. Thank you to our viewers on KUAM TV. Come on over to our Facebook live feed, or again on the radio. Here we're KUAM FM Agatni Guam. It's the link on the breeze. My name's Chris.
Sabrina.
Hasta. Adios.
Bye.
We're back. Okay, so we're talking deputy directors.
Senator Perez, that sounded like maybe. Senator Ridgell.
Yeah, I'd like to hear both sides. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, this is an issue that came up last term, and I think one of the issues is, originally he tried some version of the bill where he was going to try to, and I'm talking about Senator Moylan, I believe he was going to try to just eliminate positions, and then there was some talk about could be inorganic because you can't control who the governor hires with her authority to hire, et cetera, et cetera. So this is another way he's trying to do it, which is, all right, let's just defund it, right? But it's a bit of a shell game, because he's going to say, okay, just don't fund them to the agencies. If she wants to hire deputy director, she's going to have to get them out of her budget. Well, then guess what? She'll just submit a larger budget for her office to account for deputy directors. And, you could argue, well, we just don't have to give it to her. Well, then we're going to be in a fight where she can veto the bill and say, I'm going to keep vetoing your bill, and then we'd have to get enough votes to override it, et cetera. And then again, it's just sort of like another roundabout way of preventing her from hiring her hiring authority, basically, right? So I don't even know if you really can do that and say, okay, governor's allowed to hire everyone except deputy directors can't be hired out of the agency's budget. It has to be hired. He did a similar thing where he said the governor has to pay for executive security, out of her budget. So his argument was, I'm not saying she shouldn't have executive security. She should just pay for it out of her own budget. And that's what he brought up in the last budget session.
Yeah. No, and I get a lot of these measures are just really meant to kind of just throw mud on the wall and leave us all talking about it. I don't know how practical, or even I don't really know if the savings that would be
it's not
made
even
if it was I know, but I think the point is, you've got Senator Moylan over here saying cut costs, and then you've got Aloop saying we're not cutting anything, and it just makes them look bad. And I think, again, the same thing with the deputy directors. There's got to be somewhere in the middle where we can kind of meet and make and effectuate real savings and change, right?
Yeah, or let's look at some things that really cost us a lot of money. There's a lot of other things that are costing us more money than deputy directors. Right. There's contracts we waste money on all the time. We hire firms to do things all the time. We hire someone to do whatever study, and then we don't even use the study. Like GBB spent money hiring a company to do a study on cannabis, and now they're ignoring that study. There's some waste. Why don't we cut that kind of waste? That's just an example of contracts. We give out contracts to people to do studies, to do 5-year plans. We have plans all over the place from companies we've hired to do plans, and we never implement any of the plans. It's just we hire the company, they do the plan, they do a bunch of nice drawings, it sits somewhere, and then we spend money on that. Why don't we cut those things?
Well, we also pay companies to enforce tax laws of Guam. Anyway, what about?
Yes, I agree. I voted no on that bill.
Yeah, both of you did.
I agree.
Yeah.
I voted no on that bill.
Yeah.
Okay, senators. We did invite you, Senator Ridgell, on because we wanted to get more information about the bills that you had introduced related to our island's utilities. If you could kind of just take us through them. And these were
there's
bills
just
that you
two
kind of
bills that
introduced right before.
I introduced in the last term, so I just reintroduced them because they never had a chance to get to the floor. One is the back billing measure that would ban the practice of back billing, and for the same reasons I introduced it last term, is that I think the back billing has been unfair. I think GPA and GWA both admittedly ordered a bunch of ordered a bunch of meters that didn't work. They spent a lot of money on meters that didn't work. And then so it was a ridiculous rate of malfunction of the meters. And so they had to, sorry, Chris.
Don't be sorry. Say it again. Say it again.
The bunch of malfunctioning meters. And so then what they did is they punished the ratepayers for it, for their mistakes. They punished the ratepayers for their waste. They bought bad meters went bad, then they back billed ratepayers for it. So I just don't think it's good policy. They didn't have back billing before. It was something that was created by public law. So I say we repeal it. The other bill I introduced is a net energy metering bill. Same one I introduced last term, same issue is I think we need to protect the net energy metering customers, which are basically the solar customers for the most part that have solar panels and put solar energy back into the grid. The reason we need to protect them is because GPA and the CCU and the PUC have been flirting with this idea of changing the amount that they credit to customers who are already on the program. So customers signed up for the program, knowing that right now it's a 1-for-1. So basically, if I give you 1 kilowatt of energy, you credit me 1 kilowatt of energy on my power bill, right? Kilowatt hour. So GPA, CCU, PUC have been flirting with the idea of changing that and lowering it so that customers wouldn't be credited the same amount anymore. And I think that would just have really devastating effects on those who have already invested money. Some of these people invested their own money into it. I spoke to people who went and just borrowed money, put solar on their roofs, and then, now it took them a while to pay it off, but now they've paid it off and they're reaping the benefits. And now the GPA, CCU, PUC want to change it. So this bill would protect that and keep that program in place as it is now.
So I just want to cut in here. Senator Sabina, thank you for coming on, and keep us posted. Maybe we'll get you on in a couple weeks to catch up on your oversights.
This is Mossy. Thank you so much.
There you go, Senator Sabina Perez. Brought her on, of course, talk about the Department of Labor and the announcement that those who were